When I returned in 2017, Albuquerque was #1 in the country for auto theft. And I'm going to go a little bit before that. In 2010, I took over property crimes with auto theft. Late 2010, going into 2011, myself and back then Sergeant George Vega, from Commander of Homicide, we developed the bait car program as it is today. I think APD had one bait car that detectives parked in front of their house every morning to see if it got stolen. And we revamped the program after going to Fort Worth, Texas. And we came back and we rolled out the bait car program as it stands today. And our goal was to get out of the top 10 back then. And I'm happy to say that back then we did get out of the top 10. And coming back to Albuquerque in 2017, my #1 priority was auto theft. It was a crime that I loved to investigate, that I loved to combat, and that was important to me. And, you know, I'm happy to announce that we have dropped to #6 in the nation for auto theft, and preliminary numbers for 2023 have us down approximately 12% year to date. And from speaking to other chiefs across the country, are still seeing this crime skyrocket in their areas. And preliminary numbers that we're provided from NICB, every indication is, as long as we keep this trend going, that we will hopefully be able to further drop in this list next year. And our goal is always to get out of the top 10 and continue to lower this. What does this equal? It equals 2,000 less stolen cars in the city of Albuquerque as opposed to 2017, which is important for us. This is also the metro ranking area, so our specific numbers to Albuquerque may actually be a little bit lower. And that's one of the difficulties, is this is a metro number. So we're glad that we're back at #6. So far, year to date, the city is actually down 13%, I thought 12. At this time, like I stated, several U.S. cities are still seeing a huge increase in auto theft. And one of the things that always comes up is, what are we doing? We've had to revamp our bait car program in 2021. I think I talked to Matt about it at the time when the Journal did a story about why we had seen some increases in auto theft for a period of time. And technology changes, actually changing from 4G to 5G basically crashed our system, and we had to move to a new system. So we are continuing our bait car program. We are still pushing bait cars. We brought in new technology that Commander Jones will talk about. But one of the things is we've also done is we created a list of who auto theft sees as a top 25 auto theft offender. And we've put a priority on these individuals. And by moving the SHIELD unit to the DA's office, you saw some numbers released by the DA's office yesterday that showed an increase in granted detention. A lot of that increase is due to the better discovery packets that are getting to prosecutors earlier and more quicker in the process. There is a focus on auto theft, and we're glad that that increase of detention is occurring, because there are a lot of prolific auto theft offenders that need to be taken to jail. So we always want to thank all of our partners over the years. State Police has always been a great partner in fighting auto theft within the city of Albuquerque. It's also been a great partner with the Office of the Superintendent of Insurance. Not only do they provide us law enforcement, but they also provide us prosecutors who help us prosecute some of these cases, especially when the individual is stealing cars across county lines, which we know is very easy for somebody to steal a car in Albuquerque, steal in Rio Rancho, and all of a sudden we have two different jurisdictions, and OSI is able to prosecute those cases in one venue, which really assists us. I think it's important that we recognize, we mentioned this in 2018, the auto theft is the driver of all crime within Albuquerque. And I consistently get the question, is there unreported crime? And the one thing I always know is I keep a very close eye on auto theft numbers, because if your car is stolen, you are very likely going to report it than not report it, because of the fact that you want your car recovered. Two things I keep track of on the violent crime side: homicides. Bodies don't vanish. People do not report a homicide, and the same ways with auto theft. So those are two good crimes that we could look at to always indicate that their trending is going in the direction we want to ensure that we're having the impact. But a lot of this has to do with the hard work of our auto theft unit. When you look at a culture of investigations, a culture of proactiveness. I think back, and there is no unit that exemplifies those two traits better than our auto theft unit. When Commander Vega agreed to come back and take over investigations, we actually spoke about wanting homicide to be as proactive, to be as outgoing, and to be as quick and thorough as auto theft was when we were there as property crimes leaders back in the early 2010s. So I want to thank all of our auto theft detectives for their hard work and everything that they do. And with this, I'll turn it over to Commander Jones.
Thanks, Chief. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Aaron Jones. I'm Commander with the Investigative Services Division. Here in a second, we want to show a video that kind of just encapsulates the prolific offender side. And this is a video of Mr. Denny here speaking to one of our auto theft detectives.
Receiving and transferring stolen motor vehicle and all of your words.
On the warrant that I had?
No, on this new car that we just saw you driving today. The Kia. Don't play us. Yeah. Okay. Were you driving the Kia? No, so you just want to lie straight to my face even though I had a sworn police officer watch you driving the Kia?
That should work.
Okay, what's the deal? You just go to cars.
I need to get off the drugs.
You need to get off the drugs?
I have a drug problem.
What's that? You're selling them too, huh?
No, I'm not. To be honest.
Honestly, you probably
I'm just going to tell you straight the truth. I don't. I just... I just seen someone do it one time and then it became me doing it and then
What's up? Well, how does the cars have to do with the drugs?
because drugs make you do stupid things.
Drugs make you do stupid things?
Drugs shit. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that, it makes you want to do the right thing, it makes you do stupid shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't hurt nobody or anything, but stealing cars is a bad thing.
All these victims, like, some of them like old people, some of these victims, like, I've been out of like...
And I'm not personally, and I apologize, I don't mean to cut you off. I don't hurt, like, I'm not against you for what I did, you know what I'm saying? But, like, I'm not hurting nobody, I don't, like, rob nobody. I do, it's robbing, but it's like, it's not going out to someone with a gun in my hand or something, trying to harm anybody.
You had a gun last time.
I did have.
Yeah. But I see your point, but your point doesn't make sense to me because there is victims here.
But it doesn't.
People have a lot of money. I think this is probably your 14th case. Your 14th case in the city of Albuquerque reference stolen vehicles. Like, you're known by every officer in the auto theft unit. Like, what we got to do to get you to stop stealing cars? Get you off the drugs? Or we have to keep you in jail?
I just found out that for baby too, so it's like.
With that chick, did you want to come out?
No, my chick isn't even here.
No.
She isn't even associated with drugs. She's trying to get me to get off the drugs.
All right, so a couple things we want to highlight. So this is an example of an individual who had multiple auto thefts over the past couple of years, and actually, I believe there was 4 in a very quick succession, which the auto theft detectives knew Mr. Denny. And part of that is when the chief came back to APD, he wanted us to start a top 25 auto theft list, which would identify prolific auto theft offenders who are victimizing citizens in Albuquerque and are currently driving the crime category of auto theft. And Mr. Denny rose to that list, and it's evident because as the detective was mentioning, she said everybody in auto theft knows who you are, and they were aware of how many cases they had arrested him prior to this incident where he ran with a handgun. She referenced that in her interview. But also one thing I want to highlight is auto theft is a very proactive unit, but there's also sympathy and empathy, right? In the way that she's talking to Mr. Denny here, talking about, hey, how can we get you off of this? How can we prevent you from being another auto theft offender tomorrow? And case in point, he said, I got to get off the drugs. So auto theft, the chief mentioned it earlier, auto theft is the vehicle that ties a multitude of crimes together, including narcotics use, and it's a way that they can supplement and get money for their drug habit. So real quick, just to highlight the top 25 list, the way that we the way that we identified top 25 offenders was we wanted to look at those auto theft offenders who committed violent crime in the city. So where there was auto theft and violent crime that crossed over, that was one of our tiers for identifying the top 25. And then as you kind of go down from violence, it's how prolific are they? How many auto theft offenses have they had in a recent time period? And those would make it to the top 25. The whole purpose of this is for the auto theft unit to identify, know who those offenders are, and then to try to get them to stop being on the top 25 list. So that's really a good video to kind of showcase that. You see that drug use, fentanyl use is a huge driver for people that are stealing cars. And it isn't a victimless crime. Everybody in here that owns a vehicle, if you pay your insurance like the law requires us to do, your insurance premiums are calculated based on the auto theft rate. So everybody is paying for the crime of auto theft to a certain degree. Chief mentioned earlier that I was going to talk about some technologies. So we have another video that we're going to show here in a second of, and I'll let you know when we're going to load it up, of the grappler. I think some of you have done stories on the grappler in the past. Prior to getting to that video, I want to talk about Star Chase. I think everybody's aware of Star Chase technology. These are examples of technology that's been brought in by the chief to combat auto theft. And really what it comes down to is being in a position to think outside of the box to address a common issue that we have in the city of Albuquerque. Auto theft in 2017 was, we were #1 in the nation. We don't want to be #1 in auto theft. And so thinking outside of the box, introducing technology such as Star Chase, and then recently the grappler, which we'll show you the video of, it's helped us to reduce auto theft numbers and combat auto theft overall in the city of Albuquerque. So if we want to go to the screen over here, we'll show you a video of the grappler. It's a short video, and one thing that I'll highlight is you can see the image that is on the screen right now. Is you can see that there is a tether between the stolen vehicle and the vehicle that law enforcement is driving. What this allows us to do is to apprehend auto theft offenders who are likely to flee from us and prevent dangerous vehicle pursuits for a stolen vehicle. And you know, we don't pursue stolen vehicles. That's not something that we do with our pursuit policy, but this allows us to apprehend them in a safe manner to where they can't leave. There's a law enforcement officer driving a vehicle, you know, for their sake, we're not going to tell you what the vehicle is, but it's essentially an anchor to their stolen car, right? So they would have to drag the police vehicle that's behind them in order to escape, and that just doesn't happen. So, Chief Medina, do you have anything you want to add?
You know, I just want to add in closing that we've been very proactive with auto theft. We recognize that a lot of auto theft offenders don't stop. And with our current pursuit policy and the same pursuit policy across this country, that it's something that we need to work to make sure that we have options for our officers. And I just want to thank this administration and the mayor and city council for everything they've given us. We got a new helicopter, which has definitely helped us in apprehending these individuals and having air support more readily available for officers to track these vehicles. Star Chase is actually recognizing APD for its work in combating auto theft and using their product to take the danger out of vehicle pursuits and ensuring that we're taking individuals into custody. And they're set to make an announcement in the near future on that. We have Star Chase, we have spike belts, we have the grappler, and we have air support, and we have a lot of different options. And the message for those that are committing auto theft is quite simple, is there are a lot of ways for us to catch you. You may think you're running today, but eventually at some point in time we're going to catch up, and we'll continue to work with the district attorney's office. It's no different today than it was in 2010, 2011, in the fact that we always have had some level of difficulties in keeping repeat offenders in custody. I mean, today they showed you an example of somebody, and I remember in 2010 and 11, the intense news stories about the Brasher brothers and everything that they were involved in terms of auto theft. So we'll continue to fight this crime. We know that it's key to a lot of other crimes. We've had, in the recent few months, we had a young lady lose her life trying to get her stolen car back. We had a 5-year-old that died in a home, and the 2 vehicles involved in those homicides were both stolen motor vehicles. So we'll continue to put an emphasis on auto theft because we do believe it is a driver of a lot of other crimes within the state of Albuquerque, and hopefully we could continue to reduce this number and move in the right direction. With that, questions, Gilbert?
Do you understand about reporting auto thefts?
Oh.
Changed?
We have changed some things, and I just want to make sure that we're really clear about this. If you know where your car's at, you should ask for an officer to go out and say, hey, my stolen car is right here now, I know where it's at. But in terms of a stolen car where you wake up in the morning or you come out of a store and your car is gone and you have no idea where your car is, we do require you to report that over telephone report unit. And there's a variety of reasons. APD, like every other agency across this country, is short officers. And we want to make sure that we're getting the best use out of our officers. I want officers finding stolen cars, and the one thing I do know is when you're reporting your car stolen and you don't know where it's at, it's not where you're at. And it doesn't make sense to dispatch an officer to a home that we know the stolen car is not at. We want our officers being proactive and looking for them. So we have made changes, and I think the biggest change is if you don't know where your car is at, we're going to ask you to report it over the telephone. It's more efficient, it keeps our officers in service, and it enables us to continue to be proactive to take these individuals into custody or to respond to other priority calls. So with that, take questions. Yes, Matt.
How many grapplers do you guys have? How long have you been using them, and how do they work exactly? How is it grappled?
Yeah. Let Aaron take that.
So we have a handful. I think I won't give you the exact numbers, but we do have multiple grapplers. We started that, Chief. We brought that pretty much at the end of last year and beginning of this year. There was a trial period that we used to make sure that it would work in Albuquerque. We wanted to obviously ensure that it was safe to have a policy to back that up. But it's been in service in its current form for most of this year.
And do you guys know how many people you've apprehended using a grappler?
We actually do have those stats. I don't have them with me today, but that's something we can provide.
And then how does it work?
So the way it works is the vehicle that's deploying the grappler has you saw the strap that was kind of in between the stolen vehicle and our police vehicle. It's like a tow strap. And so a mechanism on the front of the police vehicle attaches that strap to the rear tire, and then that rear tire will lock that strap up, and then it'll create that tension where there's essentially an anchor that's dragging that vehicle or preventing that vehicle from moving.
Okay. And then have you noticed any changes in the reason people are stealing cars now? Are there any differences in what you guys are seeing as to, like, why is it different than it used to be as to why people steal cars, the reasons, or the kind of cars they steal?
I don't see a big change. I do see a change in how historically they're used. We know that one reason why, and there's not just one reason why cars are stolen. One reason why cars are stolen is individuals have substance abuse problems. They steal the cars to commit other crimes to fuel their drug problem. Or they use it as their means of transportation, or they pick it up during a drug transaction. Every officer is going to tell you they know they've taken a report with what we call a clucked car. Basically, drug dealer took a car from drug addict who owed them money. And a lot of times those cars pass different hands. I think the biggest thing that we're seeing an increase of that has always happened is now criminal element has figured out to use these cars to commit more violent crime. The one thing we're seeing is there is a lot of individuals who steal cars to purposely commit robberies. We saw it in the case of homicides that had occurred within the city where we had individuals who stole vehicles and then committed homicides using those vehicles. So there's always been vehicles being stolen for drugs and to commit crime, but the thing different is we're seeing more and more individuals utilizing them to commit violent crimes within the city.
We did a story about a dealership where his cars got stolen, and he invented a device where with the press of a button it disables the car. Would you say that APD recommends people installing these types of devices?
You know, I've always recommended a layered approach to protecting your vehicle. I own a 2004 F-250 pickup truck diesel. Used to be one of the most stolen pickup trucks. And in my previous home, I always used to say, I have my Ford pickup truck backed against the gate with a dog on the other side of the gate with an alarm on the truck, and I park another vehicle in front of it, and I have a kill switch in that truck. And I always recommend that people look at different approaches and different layers to protect their vehicles. It simply could be where you park it, added on with some kind of anti-theft device. I think that any kind of GPS program or any kind of kill switch is something that's important. And even just a steering wheel lock has shown that it will prevent individuals from taking a vehicle. So whether it's VIN etching, steering wheel locks, where you park your vehicle, ignition kill switches, or some kind of process to track your vehicle if it gets stolen, every one of those it will help either prevent your car from being stolen or help it get recovered rather quickly if it is stolen. Any other questions?
With the drop in the auto theft rate, has that led to a drop in other crimes around the city?
I think we've seen across the board since 17, all of our property crimes are down. Violent crimes are down slightly this year. We know we have a reduction in homicides. So I think it goes back to what we said in 2017. At the end of 2017, early 2018, is auto theft is a driver of crime within the community. And by picking up individuals and stolen motor vehicles, we're impacting crime across the board. And, you know, our relationship with OSI helps us get longer sentences, more specialized prosecution. So we see a lot of success in that. Nick?
Yeah, what kind of things are you doing to combat juveniles with stolen vehicles? And is there going to be a program developed to combat those like you did with the 25 list?
You know, if there is a juvenile who is involved in stealing cars and they are stealing them at a rate that should make them a top 25 offender, there's nothing that prevents us from putting that individual on the top 25 list. So, yes, juveniles, if they're at that rate, they will be on that list. Go ahead, Nick, you have another?
No.
Chief, okay, go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay, Chief, what would you say to the residents who think the department isn't helping them when their vehicle gets stolen? For example, we've received reports that police aides show up to their place of business or their home just to gather information, but really they don't have any follow-ups like investigating from police officers. That's when they have to start going out on the streets and looking for their cars, and it can turn into something bigger.
You know, I think it's important for citizens to recognize, number one, that it is difficult to recover stolen cars. We don't always have a vehicle to recover. There is a variety of ways that a car will change or how a car is disposed of. We talked about how they're used to commit other crimes, but the most profitable way to use a stolen motor vehicle is actually to take it apart and sell it in pieces. So we do know that we have chop shops that sometimes will take a car apart, sell it in pieces, and that car is never to be recovered again. We also know that we have individuals who find a clean title, they'll do a VIN switch, and that car is very hard to detect and find in the future because it's been turned into another vehicle. And unless an officer who pulls it over specifically looks, they may not notice that that VIN has been switched. So we ask the public for their patience in the fact that we are investigating these. We are focusing on the most prolific auto theft offenders because that makes the big impact to the problem of auto theft as in itself. But we also have to remember that without a doubt, we're not going to get to every single case. And some case has zero leads. There is nothing to follow up on. And I think that's the most frustrating thing for residents to understand is that we sometimes have nothing to follow up on. We have a car stolen that's either not recovered or recovered with no evidence. And the evidence that it's recovered is really key also where it's located. Sometimes we find fingerprints on the outside of the car. It may give us somebody to look at, but it doesn't give us enough to charge an individual. The courts will not recognize fingerprints on the outside of the vehicle as a reason for us to charge that individual with stolen motor vehicle. They have to be found inside, and other things have to compound to it. Yes, Matt?
How do you think you stop someone like Denny from stealing cars? I mean, do you think he's learned his lesson? He's not
No. if they do not get him help for his underlying issue, which is drug addiction, he will continue to steal cars. And this is where I think that people have to really look. And I know we don't want to put everybody in jail forever. I recognize that. But there's individuals like this gentleman here that we're talking about, Denny, that I think the system is hurting them. If we were to kept him in custody the first time, on the first auto theft, and gotten him into the treatment program that he needed, there's a possibility he wouldn't have 13 more incidents after that. And I think that sometimes laws are passed with good intent, but the way they actually work when it comes down to it, they hurt individuals. Eventually, these cases, Devin's back there, they will prosecute them, and this person will have a ton of charges against them that will get them a very lengthy prison sentence. Where if we would have dealt with it the first time and not released them into 100% failure environment, we could have gotten something done earlier. But in a way, we're just hurting these individuals because they're building so many cases and they're going to get rearrested over and over. Until we treat the drug treatment, it's going to continue to occur. You guys have anything on the prosecution side you want to talk about? Some of these cases? You good?
We're good, sir.
We're good.
Do you think APD is responsible for getting these people clean off drugs?
No, but I think APD has a voice, and we need to continue to advocate, and we need to continue to educate, whether it's the state legislature, prosecutors, courts, everybody possible, that this is what we're seeing, and these are the long-term solutions. So, no, APD is not responsible, but we should be make sure that our voice is heard, and that we continue to educate everybody, including the public, that the solution is getting these individuals help, and that maybe some of the processes we've set up in the past aren't necessarily doing what we intended them to do.
Chief, you had talked at the beginning there about the bait card program and how that played a factor into auto theft dropping. Can you go a little bit more into depth about how the bait card program works and how that led to a drop in auto theft rate?
You know, in 2010 timeframe, we looked and we had one bait car. And myself, Commander Vega, went to Fort Worth and we looked at see, and Minneapolis was the agency that was giving the bait car class. And I remember sitting there saying, we're going to have this program by the end of the year. And then Chief Schultz was great in getting us the funding, and we purchased our first 10 bait cars. And we deploy bait cars in two ways since back then. First, we do long-term deployments where we basically leave a bait car somewhere to be stolen. We do that based off statistics, where is it more likely to get stolen. And we also do scenario-based bait car deployments at times for individuals who are basically criminals of opportunity who end up taking a car rather quickly. And I remember the first bait car deployment we had, I left a car on Pennsylvania and walked off, and within 2 minutes somebody had stolen the car and just driven off. The individual drives off in the car, and we have the ability to turn the car off. And once the car, we get units behind it, we're able to turn the car off. I don't know, did we ever use the lock the door features?
We did for a period of time, we don't.
We could lock the doors if we'd like, but there are reasons why, you know, we just have to deal with it and stuff, and we don't lock the doors. But it's eye-opening how quickly an individual will take a car, but it's also has led to great videos. I could think of the videos in the past that you YouTube, and individuals are as happy as can be. And I think one was singing a song about how happy he was when all of a sudden there is a set of lights in the background. And part of the deterrence of it, though, is the public knowing that we have bait cars. And I could tell you we will never give the exact number of bait cars we have, but I cannot count it on two hands. And we'll continue to deploy bait cars, and you just never know when you'll be. But it's a constant fight, because auto theft don't like leadership to release that. We're arresting person after person in a bait car because bait car arrests go down because people stop stealing cars. So it's a battle back and forth of how much we release. I say release everyone.
Chief, can you talk about, just personally, I've seen signs advertising bait car in the area. Can you kind of talk about the intention behind advertising that there's a bait car?
We started that early in 2010, 2011. I think Aaron, when I got transferred from the Southwest to back to property crimes in 2014, Aaron actually picked up my office in a truck that was marked bait car could be in the area. Bait car advertisement is part of the deterrent. If criminals know and understand that there's bait cars in the area, other places have seen success in advertising that and making sure that people know that there's a possibility you're going to steal a bait car, and it's the sense of a deterrent.
Are bait cars made to look like the cars that people target, or are they just all kinds of different vehicles?
All kinds of different vehicles, variety of vehicles. I think one of the most successful bait cars we ever had that I remember in the early days, and I think it ended up getting torched at some point, was a Cadillac Escalade. So, just variety, you never know what they are. We try to model them off what we're seeing stolen. Any other questions? Do you guys have anything? OSI's in the room, our best partner, and they're getting here just in time because we moved things up, and we may have forgot to tell them, but we'll take ownership of that. Thanks.
Thanks,
Sorry
Chief.
about that.
I apologize, bit of a communication breakdown. We were running a little late this afternoon. My name is Devin Chapman. I'm the Executive Director of the New Mexico Auto Theft Prevention Authority, which is housed in the Office of Superintendent of Insurance. Our main office is here in Albuquerque, and for many years, these slides have been causing us a lot of pain. There's 16 is missing off of this particular screen, but it was just as bad as 17. And it's when everybody started paying a lot more attention to this issue here in the metro. You may have heard, my office is charged with kind of watching the entire state. And while we've had great success here especially with Chief Medina and his folks who are out there busting their tails all the time and bringing us all the cases we can eat as prosecutors, we have long been talking about the problem as a state problem. And for too long, too many people have kind of brushed it off and said that that's just an Albuquerque thing, that's the price of living in the city. It's not something anyone else has to worry about. For anyone that's seen the NICB numbers that came out last week, and I would imagine you may have made some mention of them. In fact, that's what the rankings we see are based on. We're still in the top 10. Granted, we slipped a spot, which is a blessing. But for the first time ever, we've got other cities in New Mexico that are also on the top of that list. Both Las Cruces and Santa Fe have now climbed into the top 30 for the first time ever. And those are just 3 of the 4 cities that are measured by NICB. So this is no longer just an Albuquerque problem. This is a statewide problem and needs statewide solutions. We will be back in Santa Fe in front of the legislature and other agencies trying to get as much help and bring resources and attention to this problem as we can. But we need your help, and we need continued help from law enforcement to keep the heat on these guys. Too often, as in the prosecution side of this, we often run into the issue of people arguing that these are nonviolent offenses and don't warrant the kind of attention and weight that the courts can bring. We have, of late, been getting pretty good sentences on our more serial offenders, similar to what Mr. Denny is looking at when and if we get him in front of the judges. The thing to keep in mind, and the thing we emphasize to the courts and everybody needs to remember, is that though no one is actually physically harmed, there is no blood in these cases. When a car is stolen, we're often talking about the second most valuable possession that these people own, next to their homes. This is their means of getting to work. It's the means of getting their children to school. It's the means of their bringing food home for the people in the house. It's the means of them getting sick parents or other family members to medical care. And all too often, the people we see that are losing cars are probably those that are the least well situated to absorb a loss like that. And so these losses are significant and they're painful, and we need to address them as such when we get them into the system. Chief is right, we're slowly seeing the results in terms of treatment and the seriousness the courts are taking these cases, but we need to keep our foot on the gas, so to speak, because as we've seen in other jurisdictions around the country, when they relax their efforts, their numbers climb back up through the roof, and we don't want to be there. So thank you for your time this afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity, Chief, and for the work of your guys. But we've got a lot of work still to do, and we need everyone's help to get it done.
You know, Devin brought up a couple points that are important. We do have 2 new cities from the state of New Mexico that entered the top 30 with Las Cruces and Santa Fe. So this isn't just an Albuquerque metro area. And in reality, The state of New Mexico ranks number 5 in auto theft. The city of Albuquerque and the Albuquerque metro area is 1 below the state. So anybody who tries to say this is an Albuquerque problem, referring back to those numbers. The state of New Mexico actually ranks higher than the Albuquerque metro area in auto theft. And we have good reductions this year, which our number is going to continue to fall. And I don't know about the other cities, but I hope their numbers also being reduced, or they're going to be much closer, and the state's going to have a much bigger issue than we do in the metro area. Es muy importante que nosotros estamos haciendo todo a pescar esos que están robando automóviles, a pescarlos y ponerlos en la cárcel, a estar cierto que las personas de Albuquerque no tienen a penarse que sus carros están robados.
One question. You said that the people whose cars are stolen are the least well situated. Are you guys tracking that? Is there something that makes you say that you know that the people whose cars are stolen most often
It would be, on my part, it would be anecdotal at this point. But obviously, it's folks that are having to park their cars out in more public spaces, either on the street, in bigger parking lots, don't have secure garages, for instance, to put a car in. Those obviously are the vehicles that are more frequently targeted than others. So, yeah, it hits some parts of the community harder than others.
You know, Matt, and it does hit individuals who struggle more than it does those individuals that don't. Like, if one of my vehicles was stolen, I'd be upset, but I have another vehicle to use. But there are so many people within the metro area that one car is their car for them and for their family to utilize. And during the course of my career, 14 years on graveyard, many times in the morning I took those calls where a car was stolen and the family discovered it in the morning. And I could tell you firsthand that for years, the impact and how devastated people were because their primary sense of transportation was lost was huge. It's kind of like residential burglary. People don't think about the invasiveness, but people who suffer these losses very much impacts them at a very personal level. Anything else?
Thank you.
Run away. Thank you guys. Have a good evening.